truth is, I am Iron Man.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. Iron Man 226 from 1987. We're continuing our run through Stark Wars, as it was officially called, but then it has been retconned to be called Armor Wars when John Byrne and John Romita Jr. did Armor Wars 2. Great cover here by Mark Bright and Bob Layton. We see Iron Man chasing the Stingray, and we are still with the Silver Centurion armor. So we start out here with this splash page here. Now this is all done using zipitones and duotones in the background, and then the foreground is just your normal pen and ink. We see two Air Force pilots seeing these individuals. I think these are called Raiders if we look in here, and they are of course attacking Stark Wars Chapter 2 Glitch. And so I believe this is done by David Michelinie, Bob Layton. Sorry, David Michelinie's doing plot and script. Bob Layton inks and plot, and then Mark Bright is doing the pencils, but I didn't see a credit on the splash page unless it's going to be elsewhere. So, all right, so we see it here, and the Air Force is calling for a mayday, and then these guys open up the this bolt here, and this guy for some reason doesn't shoot out because of course they're decompressing the thing. Oh, there it is. He just took a bit here, so off he goes here. His name is Hank, so goodbye, Hank. All right, so it's now gonna go into a nosedive. So here they go, and they are looking for particular crates here. So this guy says here, get those crates open and start packing the loot fast. We don't know how long we'll have before. And so he was making a nosedive, but now he has leveled up. Well, what do you know? Flyboy's got us level already. Guess the government's training is as good as it was when I was in the service. And so, but he'll be too busy keeping us level to cause any trouble. And he's like, take it easy, boys. We got all the time in the... And then he pauses, of course, because Iron Man... There's no point in hiding the thing because, of course, we can see him here. You know, the next time you send out for some pizza and they're like, oh, shoot. I've been tracking those costumes from when they were stolen from police custody. So I was close enough to hear the mayday call. That was cold, gentlemen. Very cold. And you can see Iron Man grabbed the poor guy here. And so they shoot Iron Man here. And he says, could be Tin Man, but we're hot. We almost beat you in Dallas. That was an Iron Man 145, which I have not covered. I do have a playlist I started with covering Denny O'Neil's run. I skipped around a bit during that time and then restarted when Bob Layton and David Michelinie started again. So I am missing, as of this recording, I am missing a big part of between Iron Man 201 through like 214. So I am hoping to fill in that gap eventually here. So, all right. And so this guy says, we're bigger and better than before, hero. You're finished. And Iron Man says, right. And then it causes some stuff here. And he says, problem is, guys, my gear, it isn't working. And Iron Man flicks him. That's the general idea. And so this guy's like, this isn't any coincidence. He's after us. He came prepared. Don't worry. I'll get him off our backs. Come on, get serious. Bullets from your wrist blaster can't hurt me. I know, but they'll sure do a number on Flyboy's brain pan. Or maybe I'll switch to a laser barrel and tunnel through his gray matter. Your move. And Iron Man says, my whole reason for being here is to save lives. I can't be responsible for the loss of one, even if it means failure. Captain, I'm sorry. And so they're like, the heroes always wimp out. Of course, you realize we can't leave any witnesses, but you've been a good sport, Flyboy. I'll make it quick. Captain, when I say duck, duck. You got it. Huh? Where are you talking to? Duck. And so he does. And Iron Man, bam, goes right through. And just so you won't feel left out here, here's your very own negator pack. In seconds, your wrist blaster will be as useless as your body, as your buddy's shattergun. And now, for you, he's like, oh. And so he leaves here. He's got something here. Sticking around to help your friends, eh? Always did admire loyalty. Energy shields still work against my repulsor rays, I see. What a shame, your aim's as bad as ever. Idiot, I don't have to be dead on with my siphon net. Alright. I've added heat-seeking circuits. Now even if you avoid my toss, the net comes after you. And Iron Man is like, you have improved, but then so have I. And he breaks out. And he thinks your net was supposed to drain his energy, but his armor reversed the siphon effect and tore the net to pieces. Gotta get out of here. Cloudbank could be the answer, he says here. I'll hide here, take evasive action, and come out somewhere else. So we've got this nice vertical panel. Once I've lost him, I can find some place to lay low. And then he's like, ook! And Iron Man says, nice thing about built-in radar, you can see where you're going when you can't see where you're going. And so he puts in that negator on this guy here. And shield disappears, thruster sputtering out, but my power, I'll fall. And so down he goes here on a nice vertical panel here. And Iron Man catches him. And you can see him gasping here. And Iron Man says, come on, you didn't think I was going to let you off that easy, did you? No, as soon as I make sure the military plane lands safely, I'm going to find some nice policemen to read your rights. You're going to do hard time, fella, actually. I don't know. Does citizen's arrest still work? I know that in the 80s people thought it was a big thing, but... So... It says here, hours later in a secluded Long Island estate. And so they're reading or they're listening to this electronic here. Authorities refuse to reveal the nature of the components in question, but they're adamant that if it wasn't for a surprise appearance of Iron Man, government secrets would well be in foreign hands this afternoon. And so this guy's like, curse him, that tin-suited busybody should rot in Hades. I love the way people cursed in the 80s comic books, and this guy's like, yes sir, as he hits his hand against the table here. And so it's as if Tony Stark and his high-tech employee are out to get me. Like, they made Edwin Cord their own personal target. They've interfered in my affairs before. Again, Iron Man 145 and 156, which I have not covered. And their meddling was costly. And now, after I reactivate the Raiders as part of a plan to bring Stark Enterprises to its knees, Iron Man is right here. How? And then he goes, not that it really matters. I suppose Project Firepower may be delayed, but in the long run, it will ruin Tony Stark just as Stark ruined me. And in the meantime, it appears that we may be getting some help. Help from a rather unexpected source. So, and then they let us know. But further revelations about Project Firepowers will have to wait. And so now back to Los Angeles, we're seeing Stark. Is this Stark Industries now? Stark Enterprises. And so Iron Man comes in and sure would have liked to have stopped by my house on the coast, copped a shower, some rest, maybe a few holes of golf. But spare time's been scarce. Sorry, ever since I found out some of my top secret Iron Man technology had been stolen. It was being used by criminals to do untold harm. I've made some progress at halting that illegal use, but there's still so much left to do. And as if that wasn't enough, I've also got a fledgling business to run. You can see him taking off the armor back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and probably 90s, at least a big part of it. The Iron Man armor was a big, bulky thing. It isn't like now or like in the movies now where it's I know Warren Ellis did that run, and I forget the name of it, but look up Warren Ellis's run. I know that the armor, he's able now to like think it up and like, I don't know, liquidish, or at least that was during the time. So, anyway, and he carries the armor in this big briefcase, which actually it's the briefcase is normal size. There's no way that he fits this whole thing in that armor. And so I'll be in my office, Mrs. Arbogast. Any messages? And she says, I'll bring them right in, Mr. Stark. And so Tony thinks here, I have some terrific people on staff, and SE could run pretty well without me for a while. But I don't like leaving things unattended for too long. And he goes, Tony, could I see you in my office? If you're not too busy. He says, sure thing, Chief. I've been sprucing up a chopper. Be over as soon as I lava the grease off my hands. And so Tony says, What's that, Mrs. Arbogast? Tip O'Neill's grocery list or the minutes of the 93rd Congress? And she says, just your messages, sir. This morning's messages, says Mrs. Arbogast. And Mrs. A says, if you get any more popular, I'll have to be fitted for a trust. Shall I tell the rest of your staff you're in? And he just says, thanks, Mrs. A. And then he thinks here, most of these are from lawyers and media personnel. Seems a lot of folks are interested in my alter ego's new hardline attitude. And so Rhodey comes in. He says, you want to see me, Chief? Come in, Rhodey. I was just... And so all these people come through. And they're like, Mr. Stark, I have to see you. Excuse me, Rhodes. This can't wait. We need your... And then Mrs. A is like, this is a business office, people, not a zoo. One at a time, Mr. Hendel. You and your legal egos go first, while I go fetch my whip here. So, and so the Mr. Hendel here says things are getting sticky, Mr. Stark. Stiltman is suing for excessive use of force, and the controller's cult has filed a class action suit for infringement of their freedoms to worship. And Stark's like, you're kidding me. And he says, I wish I was. And then oh my god, what is her name? It'll come up. And she says here, my public relations department is having a rough time too, sir. Iron Man's is SE's corporate symbol, and this new Dirty Harry image is scaring off conservative investors. Maybe I should speak to Iron Man face to face. And Tony says, that would be a bit awkward right now, Miss Pearson. But Mr. Stark, if I'm to do my job, the phone rings. He says, excuse me. And then this guy here says, Mr. Stark, Abe Zimmer over at Accutech. It's about that field war a few nights ago. I need to see you right away. And so he says, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, an emergency. Rhodey, let's go. And Marsha's her name. All right. Great. Now what do I do? And Rhodey says, the best you can do, babe. Say we're still on for tonight. And she says, I don't know. I suppose so. And then Rhodey thinks, okay, sounds like it's going to be a fun date. And then he sighs on his mind here. And so as they're riding the helicopter, Rhodey asks, how'd it go with those raiders, Chief? And Tony says, all right, I tracked them with a scanner I built up to pick up the unique frequencies from the stolen technology that we're using. And once I found them, the negator packs did the rest. Melted and fused their circuits so they couldn't be used again or duplicated. And so I can't believe they wouldn't have blueprints, but that's all right. Um, I mean, they made them to begin with. It's not like they make them and then that's it. So, the comic book writers don't always, particularly in the 80s, they do their best. They probably, comedy or comic book writers and TV writers and all that kind of stuff weren't probably too big on research and stuff. But I mean, once you build something, you have plans and blueprints, and those plants would be somewhere. So, anyway, um, it's funny. I do overthink some of these comic books, but so Tony says, but if I hadn't shown up, at least one innocent man would have died, and my invention, sold to the Raiders by Justin Hammer, would have been responsible. Whatever happens, I won't rest until I get that technology out of criminal hands. And so now we're in Acutech, and we've got Abraham Zimmer, and I have covered the issues with him. So, and he says, it's about that file we borrowed from Justin Hammer's database, Mr. Stark. The retrieval was so quick, the message so unorthodox, that I'm afraid we created a glitch in the program. One of the names in the file was erased as we copied it. I see. Thanks, Abe. Why don't you take a break? Why don't you just tell him over the phone? Oh, sure. I guess I could use some coffee. And so Tony says, Abe doesn't know the meaning of that file, but those names were a list of everyone Hammer sold my technology to, which means that if one name is missing, no matter what I do, there'll be someone left like a cancer cell waiting to start over and over again. Got to tap the West Coast Avengers computers to try to figure out whose missing name belongs to. Each of these technology-based individuals not on Hammer's list is a possibility, but facts and logic eliminate them all except one. Stingray, of course. And Rhodey says, but Chief, that guy works for the government. I know, but I don't see who else it could be. Besides, I wouldn't put it past Hammer to have a deep cover agent planted in, and then his beeper goes off. Avenger priority code yellow. The Avengers requested my press as this yellow code. Meet emergency, but I guess I better pay them a visit. And so they leave here. And so here he goes on from the airplane, and he goes to the Avengers, and he says, that's right, Hawkeye. I said it's personal. Hawkeye is the chairman of the West Coast Avengers, and I'm covering John Byrne's run on West Coast Avengers. So, okay, Shalha, but according to the news rags, you're taking the name Avenger a bit too literally, says Hawkeye. And then Mockingbird says, Hawk's right. It's like you're pursuing some kind of vendetta. I know there's a reason, Tony. Won't you tell us? And he says, I can't, Mockingbird. Not now. It's just something I have to do alone. Please, all of you, trust me, he says. And so he leaves here. And so as he leaves, he makes a call to this Do's and Don'ts Salon on Rodeo Drive here. And so here we go. And then Tony's talking to her and asking her on a date here. It says, see you in an hour. And so 1 hour later at the exclusive Beverly Hills Tennis Club. And Tony says, oh, did I mention that she did, that I took Martina Navratola's advanced seminar when I was in Dallas last month. So, for those of you who don't know who she is, she was a tennis player in the 80s. So, and Tony's like, why no, Ray? You didn't. I'll have to remember to tell my old training partner, Ivan Lendl, the next time I'm in Connecticut. That must be another tennis player. So, here these two are playing tennis at the club here. So, this is just filler page. So we'll just move on. So Marcy and Rhodey are having a date, and she wants him to get Iron Man 1-on-1 with her, and he's like, "That's gonna be hard. We can't do that." And she keeps pushing him. He just says, "Don't push me." And then they just stare at each other. She says, I seem to have a bit of a headache. I guess I won't be staying over after all." He's like, "Yeah, maybe that's for the best," as she leaves. So the next morning, Tony's out here, and Ray spent the night, and she brings him some Perriers, which is like, I don't know, what is it, like soda water or something like that. And he says he's finally reconciled what I will have to do tomorrow. So, and so now we are in the next day in the afternoon here. And Tony says he's going to ask Stingray to hand over the armor. And he says, "Well, as soon as he's one of the good guys, he'll comply." And then Rhodey's like, "How come you brought your armor?" And he says, "In case he's one of the bad guys." So, all right. So now we've got a Hydro base, and here comes a Stingray. He sees the bogey, and he's going to put on the Stingray costume here, and is going to meet Stingray. He says, "I've read about your recent attacks and costumes types. Guess I was kind of expecting you." And Iron Man says, "I don't want any trouble, but I have to confiscate your armor. If things go well, I'll return it." And Stingray says, "Sorry, government property. You need proper authorization." And Iron Man says, "Look, I've tried going through channels that take forever. I'm not going to steal your bloody armor. I just want to." And Stingray says no, and he leaves. So, why? What do we know? Of course, we're going after him. So Stingray goes to the water, and so Iron Man follows through. So we can see Stingray's trying to get him to, tries to avoid him or lose him, but Iron Man just keeps plowing through and gets Stingray. But he's still slipped up here. So he keeps going down, which of course increases the pressure. But here's the funny thing. I don't know how his little suit works, because the pressure should be like totally taking him. So Iron Man's like, it's too much pressure. So something is apparent here. So he's hiding here, and suddenly you see this rumble here. And of course, he is throwing he's creating an avalanche here of these rocks falling through, and so he gets out of the way. But he had these inhibitors waiting for him, and stuns him here. But he realizes that his technology is not on Stingray, and he's like, "Oh crud, I just made a huge mistake," because of course the U.S. government. So he pulls him out, and Iron Man says, "You should be okay in a little while, Stingray. I know you don't understand, but believe me, I did what was necessary." And he's like, "I'll make sure to leave that on my report." And so the lawyer's like, Iron Man's making things worse, and they're gonna be sued by the government. And Marcy's like, something has to be done. He's like, set up a press conference. And so he talks about Iron Man, but I'm not going to bore you with all that. He simply says he's fired. So Tony's firing himself, meaning Iron Man is no longer working for Stark Industries, which means everything he does now is on his own. So Tony essentially has fired himself. Iron Man 226, and even though we did not have a creative team, it was David Michelinie plot script, Mark Bright pencils, and Bob Layton's plot and inks. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.